about this, but it's like as an artist, when you have to present things that people are going to rip you apart constantly. So I at least had some experience with that, but you like take critique very well anyway. So just for anybody else that is a starting out game dev, just know that like people are going to rip you apart, and it's for your own good. Let's put it that way, because
there are a lot of really nice people out there too, but you just got to be careful not to let all the good comments kind of get
yeah. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Red Essence Games podcast. I'm Nick.
I'm Arman.
And we are lifelong gamers as well as game developers. And in today's episode, we have a very special one for you guys, because if you've been following us the past couple months, basically our podcasts are typically about other games and, you know, game mechanics and stuff like that, and we analyze them as game developers. But in this episode, what we wanted to do is do a little story time and kind of tell you guys how we became game developers, like how we formed our company. And we have a demo out on Steam right now, so we thought that this would be a good week to kind of discuss this and share with you guys our journey, and hopefully inspire any other, you know, future game devs out there, because it was something that, you know, we had to figure a lot out for ourselves. And there's more and more information that's kind of come over time, but especially when we were starting out, it felt like we were in this scary, like, dark hole, and we had to make a lot of friends and get advice from a lot of people to kind of get to be where we are today. So
we have to learn the Unity engine and,
yeah,
and all the little things about it, and
all the set actives and bools and stuff, and
how
stuff
to compress images and create tile maps and
all that
fun
stuff. Yeah. So basically we can kind of take it back to, I think 2017 is when we kind of officially started our company, but it was a little bit before then. And I think this was in both of our bloods our whole life, where we were like, we knew we wanted to get into game development, but I obviously started more as an artist, concept artist. You're more the programmer. And Arman and I have been friends for a very long time, since we were like 15 or something like that. So it's been quite a while. We're in our 30s now, just for context. And basically what ended up happening was I had been working on a couple art gigs for some different indie studios, and one year all of the projects I was working on fell through like at the same exact time. So I was kind of in this like crisis period where I was just like, what do I do with myself? And it felt like a good opportunity to just be like, I've been wanting to make games. Why don't I just figure out how to make games myself? Why don't I figure out how to try to run a studio myself? And I did some tutorials and learning how to do Unity and stuff like that. But sure enough, like, I didn't go to school for programming. I had very basic knowledge and was doing that James plus Games tutorial at the time. Games.
Yeah, go check his stuff out. I mean, I hope he's still making videos.
Yeah, we should message him too, by the way. But yeah, so I was kind of just learning a little bit by myself, kind of adding assets in myself. And then I'd been kind of reconnecting with Arman at the time. We'd been hanging out a lot more around then. So I was kind of just like, yo, do you want to like make a video game with me? And of course your answer was
yes. Let's do it.
Yes.
Well, I actually, that day, I remember we were at our apartment where Derek and I lived, and I brought out like a bunch of like crap that I made myself. It was like,
oh yeah,
I brought out like a card game I made myself and like a board game, and I was just like showing you all that stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I got ideas. Like, let's just do something. So I think we kind of, decided let's build this thing out and see where we get.
Yeah.
So, and then it sort of started like this, right? So he'd be like, yo, come over like come over, let's look at stuff. And he'd be like, hey, you want to come over again in like 2 days?
Yeah.
And then it became like an every other day thing for like 3 hours. I'd come over, and he lived down the street. So he was probably like, I don't know, like a 5-minute walk.
Yeah.
So I'd walk down. We lived in Manayunk, Pennsylvania. So yeah, it was a great time in our lives.
Yeah, it was really fun.
It was a fun time. But yeah, I'd walk to his house, and we would just work in his room, and then
my small ghetto Philly office room. Yeah. I lived in an apartment where you could literally see, there was cracks so big in the floor that you could see the light from the downstairs neighbor below me.
Shout out to Nate and Lexi for taking over that apartment.
Oh yeah, our game dev friends took over my apartment.
Thanks for the context.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started off like 3 days a week, 3 hours each, and then Nick was like, "Hey, you want to like just start coming over every day?"
Yeah.
So at this point in time, like, just as context, I had been laid off at my company, and I was sort of just looking for something new to do, something new and interesting, and this kind of just happened in the right time, I
Hmm.
guess.
For both of
For
us.
both of us.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a weird timing thing, and we were both interested, and I was like, you know what, let's just see where it goes. And we met up and we did this thing, and then I started teaching college classes. That's kind of how I made a bit of money at the
Hmm.
time, but at the time I wasn't really making much money because I was focused on the game.
Yeah.
And then after that, we were working like 8 hour days for five days a
Yeah.
week, and we were getting pretty serious. And at that point, we were still both pretty noob.
Yeah.
Like we were still kind of not sure about things, and we were having to look things up, and you know,
Because guys, it's one thing to start developing a game and learn how to do the thing and kind of bring in some of your own background knowledge, but we we are very ambitious people,
yeah,
let's say, and maybe overly ambitious to a certain extent, but we kind of knew we wanted to make like a real video game. We didn't want to just like make a little project and throw it up. I feel like that we kind of had already done some of that stuff in our own time, making like little tiny games just to get our feet wet sort of thing. So when we
yeah,
partnered up, we're like, let's do it right, let's do it legit. So we formed our studio like as an LLC, Red Essence Games, and we started to reach out for help. And I think Milan was the first person we like hired, right?
yeah. We found him on Fiverr.
Yeah,
And yeah, we were like, okay, this guy's pretty cool.
yeah.
Let's work with him. And
I think originally we just
yeah,
got him for sound effects, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we did. No, actually, I think we did sound effects, and then we were like, hey, can you do music? And he's
yeah.
like, yeah, I'll do music.
And we had him like crank out some soundtracks.
Yeah.
And I think this was when we were first going into our first convention. I think that's why we
Mhm.
decided to hire him, because we knew we were going to be showcasing a demo. We needed obviously music. We just had art and programming essentially. I was tackling all of the art. He was tackling all of the programming. So it's a lot of stuff.
It was tough.
Yeah.
And I was still kind of like I wouldn't say like a junior, but I was still kind of like in that between phase of like a junior and like a intermediate programmer.
Hmm.
So I kind of felt like I was still learning a lot in terms of coding in that time range, and so I kind of was improving my skills along
Yeah.
along the process, and then over like the last 5 to 7 years, I feel like I've really just grown so much in that aspect. But in the beginning, it was really hard because there were like Unity had a lot of tutorials, but I still felt like there was just problems constantly. It's like either
Yeah.
the engine gave you an issue or the code just didn't work right, and we just were too. It was just the two of us.
I
So
think too, I mean, this is kind of jumping ahead a bit, but I think one of the biggest thing that we've both learned was how to be more efficient with our output. So like
yeah,
learning ways of programming so that it's like if you needed to go back and check something, you have more exclusive scripts to look into
yeah,
to try to problem solve an issue instead of like looking at a script that has like 3,000 lines of code,
yeah, yeah,
And then for me too, like this especially came from help from friends that had experience in engines, stuff like that, but like learning how to, animate quicker, or like tools to make levels like a lot quicker. Because when we started our first project, it was called Mask of Semblance. It was another action RPG. We were doing it the hard. We were doing everything the hard way. It was basically like we were taking like level tiles and like copy paste, copy paste,
oh, it
copy
was
paste.
brutal.
So
I
brutal.
had to
Dude.
put them on the right layer too because
Yeah.
we didn't have right layering tools.
Yeah.
This was the most brutal part, was
Yeah.
because we were
For that
like
very first demo.
the walls of the Mask of Semblance demo
Yeah,
were
yeah.
literally like, okay, this is
Numbered.
layer 55, 56, 57, 58, and it was just because so they wouldn't
Yeah.
overlap. And then at one time we went all the way around the level and it came back and they were like not aligning
Yeah,
properly
yeah,
or
I
something because the
remember.
one on the end, and we were just having a bit of an issue there.
It's funny too because I still look back at that project, and I'm pretty proud of what we produced,
Yeah.
especially for having absolutely no idea what we were doing. So
Mhm.
I think in some instances it is, I wouldn't say a good idea, but it's not bad to try to outdo yourself, because you end up learning so much if you like try to do something crazy the first time.
Right.
instead of doing something so simple that it doesn't have any like unique elements or any like anything that's like really special about it, right?
Right. But I wouldn't say complexity necessarily means a good game. I mean, there's a lot of very simple games that are very good.
I think for the skill level we were at, the type of game we were
Right.
producing was complex. I guess that's what
It
I'm
was.
saying,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It was definitely ambitious. And, they always tell you not to make an RPG for your first game, but we just didn't listen. Uh, and, we were just like, nope, this is the game that we want to make. And we felt confident making it, because we were like,
Mhm.
we played RPGs and
Yeah.
we know the sauce.
Yeah,
Like, we
yeah.
know what the sauce is. And we just need to put the cheese,
Yeah. When we
on
say
top.
we're lifelong gamers, like we're not freaking kidding in every episode. I mean, like we have played hundreds of video games in our lifetime, and I think
You
between our
more than me.
combined
But
knowledge, I play a lot of freaking video games,
yeah.
guys. But I think just we have a lot of it's almost one of those things where it's like, you watch enough movies, you kind of get an eye for cinematography to a certain extent. You know like what's working and what's not working, and I think it's the same for games. And obviously there is a little bit of theory that's involved, but I think there is a bit of intuition as well, that
Yeah.
you kind of have to bring to the table in order to make something that feels fun. Because that's been the biggest thing, especially the past couple of years, that we've kind of learned is like with a video game, the objective is it should be fun. Whatever fun means to you is what it should essentially be as you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if the game's not fun, then it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
You're not really building a video game, in my opinion. I mean, there's video games out there that are incredibly frustrating
Hmm.
to play, but some people find enjoyment from them because beating them is fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
The challenge is the
the
fun
challenge
part,
is
I
the fun
guess.
part,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, I mean, there's different ways to achieve funness, and not we're not here to say that we know the formula for fun, but we have a general idea of
Hmm.
what feels right, and what doesn't feel right, as gamers.
Yeah.
Um, and then you also have that aspect of playing your game for so long that
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
forget that you get so used to playing it a certain way that you might not realize that you've done something a certain way.
Yep. But I think it is a testament to what we've been building as well, because I do have this feeling because you kind of get burned out sometimes of playing your own game.
Mm.
And then you go into this stretch of development where you're just kind of like making stuff. You don't get a lot of opportunity to test. But then in the past couple weeks when we've sat down and we've had like a demo that has like a relatively complete story and like game mechanics and like you can level stuff up and stuff and it feels like a complete experience. I remember playing it like complete for the first time and being like, man, our game is really fun.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
game's cool, man,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's always a good feeling as well. But that's also why it's so important to regularly test your game. If it's still fun to you, I would think most likely it's going to be fun to somebody else as well.
Yeah.
So,
And there's a lot to learn from games that are out there that have done things the right way. So I
Mhm.
think it's important to, play video games, to study
Yeah.
them and understand like, oh, like this is an interesting, I like the way that they did their menu, or I like the way
Yeah.
that they, the feedback from the hit, or the way that it's presented to the player. Like it feels novel, or it just feels good.
Yeah.
And we try to copy those things, because
Yeah, I mean
that's what you got to do, right?
it's even to the extent these are some things that maybe aren't as intuitive, but you know when they're missing. So for example, like this was something we learned very early on. It's like when you hit an enemy in a 2D game, the screen needs to just do a little shake. It makes the hit feel like you're really smacking something.
Right.
And then from there, you need to have a particle that explodes to show that impact, because otherwise it just looks like two paper cutouts like smashing against each
Right,
other
right.
essentially. So
Yep.
these are the things that we've kind of learned along our journey that has been really fun to kind of implement, because once you get those things in your game, you're like, oh man, it's like my own game feels totally different suddenly. And it was such a simple tweak. So
Right.
yeah, I guess if we go back to the timeline, basically we were developing this demo, and that was kind of like our proof of concept for our company. Essentially, we knew we wanted to make RPGs, and we started to just make this ambitious demo project. And we hired Milan, our excellent musician, who he's actually, besides obviously us, the longest running member of our studio today. He's still with us on Traveler's Refrain. And we met some other people that kind of hooked us up and helped us kind of get into some conventions. So the big ones where we can maybe tell some stories from PAX East.
Yeah. Before we go into that, I mean, we worked with some interesting people.
Yeah.
And shout out to Gordon. Thank you for being there for the early days.
Yeah.
Helping us, get to PAX and introducing us to people. We definitely had people help us along the way, and
So we basically got we got
you wanna
hooked
jump
up
to
essentially
PAX
to
East
go
first, or do you want to talk about MagFest first?
We could talk about MagFest, man. That was
that's
that was
first
also
in the
insane.
timeline.
Yeah, that's true. So our first experience with MagFest is and maybe if I can find this clip, I can throw it in. I think we've got it on.
Wait, before we get to MagFest,
Yeah.
real quick, we spent about 5 months putting this demo together for MagFest.
Yeah.
Literally, we spent a year building the introductory mechanics for Mask of Semblance, and after a year of building that, we spent another 5 months building a demo just for MagFest.
Yeah.
And can you even imagine that? It's like we spent 5 months doing that. I mean, we were still progressing in the game, but it was like, holy crap! It took us 5 months just to do this. Like the amount of polish.
I know it's crazy because also to make what we made for MagFest today, we could bang that out in a month.
Yeah,
like literally a month if we just worked our butts off. We've learned so much since then.
We're crazy now.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to this convention MagFest. I think it was in where was it? Not in Maryland, not in DC.
It was at the Gaylord in
Virginia.
Virginia, I think.
Yeah. So
I think it was DC.
Was it? Or maybe it's like right across, whatever. Either way, we the night before we were trying to get a final animation done and final just like bug fixes done. So we literally stayed up for like essentially 24 hours, like all night long. We're in our little office. My wife walked into the room in the morning and she's like, "What are you guys doing?" And
we're like, play the clip.
Yeah.
You gotta just put the clip.
I'm gonna clip it in. I don't wonder why the sky is blue.
Nick, what time is it?
It's like 6:50 a.m.
I just woke up after sleeping an entire night's sleep, and they didn't go to sleep.
Dude, you keep recording vertically.
I know.
You can't do that.
I know.
And Nick and I are like delirious at this point because Nick's just like drawing on his board and he's just like, his eyes are like glazed. He's like spewing nonsense. And I'm just in the corner like, I have a mic on top of a bunch of books and I'm like recording growls for one of the monsters in the game.
I forgot about that.
I like made up like a language and I was just like spewing nonsense into this microphone. It was like on a big stack of Harry Potter books or something. We were just like putting the finishing touches on the game and like fixing all the bugs and stuff. And then after that, we had to go to sleep because we had to drive to Maryland.
Yeah.
And I slept on their couch downstairs and they had 2 cats and they literally were running over me the whole time. And I slept for like an hour.
Yeah.
And I had to drive. Did I drive or you? I don't even remember.
I don't remember.
I think we took turns or something. I can't remember.
And we got one of Arman's friends, Dave, to help us out. Shout out Dave.
Shout out Dave Hernandez.
And we literally packed him into this minivan that my mom had at the time with all of our convention stuff. So he was just like in the car like this for like 5 hours.
Yeah. We are stuck in a little bit of traffic. We're just leaving Philly now. we got somebody back there. Smuggling someone in the back.
Arman, you keep filming vertically.
I know. I'm noob at filming.
And we get to MagFest, we start unloading, we start setting up our booth, and one of the guys that was running the show, like working there, came up to us and he saw our big banner, had a flashy image of like our character and stuff like that. He's like, "Whoa, your game looks really cool. Can I try it out?" We're like, "Yeah, man, go for it." So this was going to be the first person in like a, convention setting that ever sat down to play our game. He sits down on our couch. We put the controller in his hands. He moves forward and he breaks the game. Just black screen. And we were like, no,
like, dude, what did you just do? And he's just like, "Oh, I went up and I attacked this door with the sword." And we're like, "Oh. No way."
And then he turns to us, he goes, "You guys need to test your game."
Like, we spent all night testing it.
All night, dude.
We just didn't expect somebody to attack this door with
Yep.
the sword.
So then we had to go back to our Airbnb,
Yeah.
and you were fixing it while Dave and I went and got like groceries or something
Yeah.
like that. And yeah, that was the start to MagFest. But I will say that MagFest
Dave
was.
slept in the jeans bed.
Oh yeah,
I'll
he
never
slept in
forget
a
that.
bed that had like jeans as the comforter.
We literally Airbnb'd in someone's basement,
Yeah.
like in their house. It
Yeah.
was so weird.
It was like a family. They had like a kid and everything. We had to
Yeah.
like go into their house and walk, like see them and walk down the stairs to go to their basement.
It was so weird. But hey, I mean,
It worked
we
out.
did it. We
Yeah.
did it. Yeah, that was a go ahead. What were you saying?
But yeah, we show up to the convention, and honestly, this convention though, in terms of fun factor, was the most fun convention that we had gone to. We met some really cool friends there. We actually met friends through one of our Philly game developer friends that we had made.
Shout out to Jeff.
Yeah, shout out to Jeff, shout out to Nate and all the other
Yeah.
guys. And
They are at Paralily.
mhm.
So or they're Luna Wolf Studios, and their game is Paralily. Check it out on
Switch.
Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's so cool about a lot of these shows is I feel like we made friends so long ago that we've like kept in really good touch with. And I think that's another testament to just like being really open about, meeting people and having a good time, like being open to just like
Yeah.
like shooting the shit kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like even before the game dev stuff, I would attend a lot of these art conventions and what?
I can't stop thinking of the pink Ferrari guy.
God. That's a story for another
That's a
time.
story for another time.
But but yeah, I feel like I've made the best friends from conventions like this, just like having a beer sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
And we had so many people like want to just take us out and
yeah,
treat us, and that was like so awesome.
Yeah.
Because we were like
we didn't
nobodies.
know anything.
we didn't know anything. We felt like nobodies
Yeah.
really. I mean,
They like would invite us to the
so-
parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the way we've kind of looked at it is like, because it's one of those things you almost kind of feel guilty when you have somebody like treating you to all this stuff. But what I've kind of learned as I've aged and as I've become more of a professional throughout my career, it's like you kind of just end up paying it forward.
Yeah.
There's, we had a call with one of our friends who we essentially kind of gave him a little talk because he was an intern at their company. So, it's stuff like that it's like you just can't do anything when you're so young and so green. But the only thing you can do is kind of pay it forward over time. So yeah, that convention was freaking awesome. And then yeah, like time had passed. We learned from that convention that like, okay, the demo we produced for that is just not cutting it. Like it was extremely simple. But again, we were so new.
we also had that card game that we made. We made a card
right.
game for Mask of Semblance, and the neat thing about that was we basically created 7 different cards, and we made a little sandbox game that you could play with them.
Mhm.
And the 8th card was like a rule card that showed you how to play. And every day of the convention, we had new cards out, so people would just come back the next day and get the
Yeah.
new card.
They were like our business cards. So on the back, it had like all of our information. So it was a good way for us to have a free promotional item, but like it was something they'd hopefully want to keep because you could play the game as well.
Right.
So yeah, that was cool. I would like to do something like that again if
Yeah,
we
for sure.
get around to it. But yeah, we kind of learned a lot from that specific convention, basically being like, this is just not where we need the game to be. And from that point, dude, I think I redid all of the sword animations. We added a companion
you did.
character. We created an entire story for the new demo that we were going to present at PAX. And the way we had thought about that was our first demo was kind of like, we were just like, this is just to figure out how to present something that's playable. The next one was like, this is a legitimate story from start to finish. And that required a lot more thought, a lot more work, and a lot more of like our actual like game dev thinking experience. Because we had gotten past the point of like, the character can run around and attack things and there's a boss and level up. Now we're like, okay, how can we tie themes together? How can we like make actual puzzles
Yeah.
and stuff like that?
And that game's actually on GameJolt.com.
Yeah.
If you search Mask of Semblance, you can find that demo. And I'm honestly like, I actually go back and play it every now and then, and I'm like, wow, this game is awesome. Because like, not only because it's us and like I love our stuff, but I'm like, wow, like we put so much detail into it.
Yeah.
And we actually had people like message us because there was 3 different endings you can get based
Mhm.
on like the things you did in the demo.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, well, I did these things and I got this ending. Like, what do I have to do to get the other
Yeah.
ending? And we asked them, you know, we talked it through and we're like,
Yeah.
well, this is the reason why you get this ending and this ending. It all had to do with the way you talk to the characters.
Yep.
And the things that you collect and things. So we really, I mean, we really sat down and just tried to say, like, do all these elements make sense?
Mhm.
Like, will people pick up on these like different things that we've kind of plopped around?
Especially because it was like what, an hour and a half long demo. It's like we tried to pack in as much as we possibly could into that thing, and like you said, yeah, it had to all make sense together. So that was definitely a challenge. And basically at that time we were kind of looking for like publishers. We had it in our heads like, okay, if we partner with a publisher, they'll kind of help us like bring this thing to life. And that in itself had been an entire learning experience as well, that I think, you know, if not for that experience also, we wouldn't also be kind of where we are right now. I think we learned so much from the business side of things, because, you know, if you're growing a legitimate game studio, even if you are a solo dev, I mean, there's still a lot of business stuff you have to take care of. You gotta learn how to write emails to people, connect with people. You gotta learn how to market. You gotta learn how taxes work. You know, all of this like random stuff that you didn't initially think you'd be doing a lot of ends up beating a lot more of your time, especially when there's very few of you to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
And you spend days just writing emails,
Mhm.
writing pages of content. Like,
mhm.
I remember we spent hours writing emails to
Yeah.
people because we just didn't know what to write. I mean,
Yeah.
we literally found like investors' emails online, and we were like, let's write to this investor.
Yeah.
We didn't just copy paste like most sane people do. Like, we sat there and we're like, hey, we see you guys do this. We are this.
Mhm.
Like, you know, we really want to work with you, this and that. And, you know, we spent a lot of time. Like, we spent hours writing emails, you know, website pages, all that stuff. And, you know,
I think though what's helped now is we've had to do a lot of that stuff recently to promote the demo, and I feel like we're fast now with like, okay, press release, bah, 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 let's get this thing out. We kind of know how to talk about ourselves and our company and our project a lot more efficiently, I guess, as well. So so anyway, yeah, we attended PAX East for 2 years in a row, and those are also really funny what do you call them, like sleeping situations.
yeah.
The first
interesting
one,
experiences.
yeah. Do you want to talk about
The school bus one? Was that the second one?
No, that was the second one. The first one was at your friend's place with the
Yeah.
parking.
Shout out to Carrie
Uh,
Rugenstein.
yeah.
Thank you for letting us stay at your house at
Yeah.
the time. But we basically, I hit up my buddy and I was like, yo, we're coming to Boston. Like, you know, could we stay with you? And he's just like, yeah, sure. Like, come through. So we took the van and we drove up, and Boston is very tricky to navigate. We were struggling up there.
Yeah.
And we
Took
finally
the
got,
van. We took the van and we took Dave again.
and we took Dave again.
Yeah.
Dave was stuffed in the back. And we get there, and it's in do you remember the name of the town we stayed in?
I don't remember.
Somerville?
Yeah,
something like that.
Somersville, maybe.
Somersville or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I know people know that
Yeah.
one, so you probably know what that is. But yeah, we stayed there, and in order to park on the street, you needed a parking permit.
Yeah.
And I messaged Carrie, and I was like, "Yo, we're coming. Like, can you get us the parking permit?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I'll get you the permit." And then we got there, and you know, Carrie didn't get the parking permit, so we're having to drive around this neighborhood, look for a place where we can park.
Which
Public
is
parking.
actually impossible.
Actually
like
impossible.
every single street, even in the residential areas where there's huge places to park, it's like parking permit required or else you will be towed. So we found a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot.
We found like a really shady Dunkin' Donuts parking lot,
Yeah.
and it literally had like Oh man, I remember we
It's like
parked
a
there at
vine
night. It was just like
wall around
9 or
it.
10 at night. We parked the car there,
Yeah.
and we were like, okay. We left all our props in the car.
Yep.
We brought all the computers and stuff in.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
left like the props and stuff in the van, and we're like, dude, we're praying like somebody doesn't steal the wheels of this. Or like the car doesn't get towed or something.
Yeah.
We're just like praying that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we went back to Carrie's, and he set us up with a bed. Sorry, Carrie, but the couch smelled really bad.
And I got set up with an air mattress. And
Yeah.
every single morning, I woke up on the floor because the air
Yeah.
mattress had
Well,
deflated.
I would look at Nick, and Nick, I couldn't see Nick. Nick was like in like a V. He was like sucked into the middle of this like air mattress on the ground. And me and Dave were like splitting the big air mattress, and we were like kind of like sleeping the opposite way.
Yeah.
And it was so uncomfortable that I had to put half my body on the couch because I kept like getting bounced around by Dave
the
moving.
stinky couch.
Yeah, the stinky couch. Yeah.
And then one of the roommates
Yeah.
thought it would be a good idea at 5 a.m. every single morning to use the blender to make a smoothie
Yeah.
and then bicycle out, click, 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 past our beds right before we were going to be in a convention for like 15 hours straight working, essentially.
Yeah.
So
So
that's
that
how
was-
we'd wake up every morning.
That was brutal. And we were working the nights before. Like
Yeah.
we were testing and fixing things and adding some things, and we were working till like 12, 1 maybe, and this guy was just making his smoothie at 5 in the morning. Like and then the other roommate would walk around without his shirt on.
Yep.
With like his like headset
And Xbox
and
controller.
Xbox controller.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on around here?
Oh man,
But,
wait, this is so unrelated too, but do you remember on the first night there was a pan with like crusty eggs in it? And then 5 days later after the convention ended, on the last day the pan was just in the trash. So nobody wanted to clean it.
That's so funny.
Oh man. So yeah, so that was our first PAX experience. The convention itself, I think again we kind of learned a lot.
The car was there in the morning, by the way.
The car was there in the morning,
Yeah.
thankfully. I honestly don't really remember the actual convention itself as much as the second PAX we attended.
The first one we went through the back. We like parked and went through the back entrance. But the
Mhm.
second time we went, we weren't allowed to go through the back that
That's
time.
right, yeah.
And we had to stand in line with everybody else, which was really weird. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like, we have to set up the booths and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And I remember we left. We were literally like 15 minutes from the venue, or like 10 minutes. But it took us 40 minutes to get like close to the, like, we basically had to go around this. If you've been near the Boston Convention Center, you have to go all the way around like this one part of the city to get to the convention
The
center.
city,
It's like one big road.
the city of Boston, if you look at the map, it looks like somebody had string and just dropped it. Those are the roads.
Yeah.
It's just twists and turns, and you're trying to use your GPS, but you have to go under like 6 tunnels where you're gonna lose service.
Yeah.
So
So I was like, Nick, just drop me off here. And he literally dropped me off. I looked at the GPS. He still had an hour to get there. And it was literally like a 5-minute drive. It was a 5-minute drive.
yeah.
But it was just around this bend. And he literally dropped me off. I crossed the bridge where the hotel was.
Yep.
I went to the Boston Convention Center and I waited in line. And, I went in, started setting stuff up. And yeah, I mean, we had a really good experience that one, I think. That was a lot of fun.
I think at that one we mostly met other devs. That was kind of the big benefit of that one. We kind of learned, like, again, from people that had more experience than us, like what are these guys doing right? How are they presenting themselves? How are they talking about their games and stuff like that? And sometimes it's a little bit of an awakening to kind of get in these situations where you see all these awesome games and you're like, it kind of just makes you want to do better too,
Yeah.
which I think is a cool like kind of community experience.
Yeah, I actually met Diego there. I don't think you remember that, but we met Diego Almazan. So he's one of the devs that worked on our game as well. He's a VFX artist and programmer and artist. So he did a lot of cool stuff for the game. But yeah, I met him there. He was working on Aqua Lungers. You can check out his game on the Switch too.
Yeah.
And Steam. And yeah, I mean, we did meet a lot of really cool people there. We met the people from Avaria Versus, and a Samang, some of those guys, and the Sheep's Meow. So
Yeah, I
we
forget the other. What was the what's his name? Nikolai Felichkin. Remember him and his company, Monsters, or was that the game?
you
they
think
were?
of Nick Berbeche?
Oh yeah, Berbeche.
We met Nick
Yeah, yeah.
Berbeche, and he had Monster Prom.
That's right.
Those awesome guys. So they
That's
were
the
there.
company. Yeah.
Yeah, so they were really nice. They invited us out to dinner, and I got to know them, and they were so cool. They're all from Romania, and they really kind of were very hospitable, and they
Yeah.
kind of like brought us in. So that was really nice of them to do that.
So yeah, so that was our first PAX experience, and then the second PAX experience, we had another kind of like interesting. This time we had enough money to stay at an Airbnb, but it was kind of like a little like apartment building kind of place, and we kind of had a common area. We shared it with just some random guys who ended up being really cool.
Yeah.
But in this place, like, I don't know what was going on. It literally sounded like people were drag racing in the middle of the night, every single night. And again, this is after we had been up all night, working and stuff like that. And then the one funny story I want to tell about that is, do you remember when we went to the El Pollo Loco?
Yeah. Oh God, I'm about to be embarrassed here.
So we we went out to dinner with our like roommates one night, and it was like El Pollo Loco was like the only place in town to like be able to walk to and get some food. And
We were not in a good area, by the way.
no, we were all kind of like ordering. It's a place where you walk in, you see behind the glass like what food they have, and we were just like, okay, we'll get the chicken, whatever. Armand's in the back of the line. He's like, can I have the steamed vegetables, please? And they're like, sir, that's going to take like 25 minutes. He's like, that's fine.
I don't think they said 25 minutes. They just said that might take a bit. Is that okay? And I was like, yeah, that's fine, whatever.
And we're all standing in
I
this.
thought we were gonna stand there and like have a beer and just chill.
But this is El Pollo Loco in like the most ghetto place in the world. And for some reason, it was also a nightclub. And there was a guy with like
an escort.
ladies of the night. They were just all like dancing in this like chicken place in the middle of the night in Boston. And we were just like standing there waiting for Armand's steamed vegetables, just like, when can we leave?
Why am I like this? I don't know.
Oh my God, that was an interesting night.
Yeah.
But that PAX, I think, was when we learned the most. I got to go to that the investor summit thing, so I got to physically meet a lot of the publishers and kind of learn what they were looking for. And I think going into our next game, kind of spoilers, like what we kind of learned going into Traveler's Refrain was starting off the project with a stronger mechanic that we could kind of specifically talk about that would describe our game. Like, I think we still had really cool stuff with Mask of Semblance, and I actually do think the companion thing we did was pretty, like, a unique mechanic, but it was kind of hard to describe.
Game's not unique. Oh, we didn't even talk about that. Hey, guys.
You want to talk about it?
Rewind a bit. Rewind. So, I need to tell this story because this is good because people often face people telling them that they can't do things, right?
Yeah.
Or they're not good enough, and we face that too. So we brought our game to. This was the first time anybody ever saw Massive Semblance that wasn't us.
Yeah.
And we were like so proud of it, and we were like, let's go and show these people at. It was at like a building at Drexel, I think.
Yeah, it was the Philly IGDA.
Philly IGDA, like we were showing off a game or something. And I remember we sat down with this guy. He won't be named, but he basically starts playing the game, and he's like playing it. And he's like. And Nick's just like, yeah, like we have a very unique this and like a fun this and a unique that. And the guy's like playing it like without any emotions. And then he like stops playing. He's like, your game's not unique.
That was the first feedback we've ever heard from our games. So I think that kind of helped us build a thick skin like immediately. Because it's kind of like, at least for us, I think we're the kind of people who are like, well, we want to prove you wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So
and he was probably right. I mean, the game probably was not unique and it was not fun, but to us it was. And that was essentially like fuel to the fire, right? It was like,
Yeah, it forced us to want to at least take the feedback and just be like, what can we do to make it more unique or more interesting, not only to
Yeah.
us, but hopefully to other people as well.
yeah. And then the second version of the game we put out, I brought it to another event that was at
Oh, yeah.
it was I can't remember if it was no, it wasn't at Drexel. It was like
You
on
went to
Market
that one by
Street or
yourself,
something.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I went there and I brought the demo, and the first guy, I was just hanging out with this guy on the couch, and I was like, hey, are you a dev? I was like, yeah, I'm a dev, and I was like, you want to try my game out? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I showed him the laptop, and he started playing, and as he's playing, I'm talking to him, and I kid you not, this was the same day that Fortnite came out. Ironically enough, like Fortnite came out that day, and
Yeah.
I should not have opened my mouth because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we were just chatting. I was like, yeah, did you know that? Yeah, Fortnite, it's cool. Like Fortnite came out today, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, Fortnite came out. Dude, I kid you not. This guy shut the laptop that I gave him. He shut my laptop and gave it back to me. Took out his laptop and started downloading Fortnite.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I didn't know what to say, honestly, because I was just like,
What
what the
can you
hell
say?
what the hell just happened? And the game was not like, it was good. Like, I don't know, it was way better than our first demo,
Yeah,
but obviously it wasn't anything
I don't think it had
spectacular.
anything to do with
It had
art,
nothing to
though.
do with our game. It was, we put a lot of heart into the game at that point, and to have somebody just do that right in your face, it kind of like fired me up because I
Yeah.
had to do a presentation during that event, and I was just like on it, like in that event, I kind of went ham. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's just funny. I mean, it's like you, especially, I mean, in programming school, you didn't have to probably do a lot of this, but it's like as an artist, when you have to present things that people are going to rip you apart constantly. So I at least had some experience with that, but you like take critique very well anyway. So just for anybody else that is a starting out game dev, just know that like people are going to rip you apart, and it's for your own good. Let's put it that way, because
There are a
it
lot of
helped
really
us.
nice people out there too, but you just got to be careful not to let all the good comments kind of get
Yeah.
to you, because you don't want to feel too comfortable, and you obviously want to take the good comments and feel good about them and enjoy them, but at the end of the day, like, you need to deliver this, you have to deliver on it,
Mhm.
and yeah, you just got to work hard and not like let it slow you down.
Yeah, and you have to understand too that like not your game is not going to be everybody's cup of tea as well, especially if you have kind of a more abstract kind of game. So yeah, those are all kind of just things to think about. But
Mhm.
fast forwarding to PAX East, the second one we attended, and I went to that thing. That was when I like really got the feedback, because the publishers are the guys that have the money and have the sway to really like push you in a direction. So that was good to hear feedback from them. And
Mhm.
what was reassuring from a lot of those conversations was the really good comments as well, because these guys don't mess around with their comments either. So you kind of know if somebody's
Yeah, they tell you how it is.
yeah, if somebody's like, "Oh, this looks really cool and it was fun," like, usually they're telling somewhat the truth.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And I think the other thing that was really reassuring, especially about the second PAX we attended, was actually, you know what? I think the Curse of the Pilati demo we didn't have that in the first PAX. That was
I don't
only in the
think we did.
second PAX.
Yeah, I think you're
That's
right.
so that was what else was cool, was our booth was constantly filled. Like, we literally had people there the entire time, and because we had added a 2-player mechanic, it was really cool to see people come to the booth and be
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, you and your friend can sit down and play together." And it was like they'd kind of strategize and stuff like that, which was
Yeah.
really fun.
Or they'd like look at the screen and be like, "Oh, 2-player, like come sit down." And we
Yeah.
brought extra chairs because it was like $100 for a chair if you wanted one.
Oh,
It was so weird. But yeah, we just brought our own chairs, and we
Yeah.
made it like a little like 4-chair studio where
Yeah,
people
yeah.
could kind of sit. Oh, and we had a couch
Mm-hmm.
and some chairs, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that was a really good show, and that's actually also where we met Alice, who is one
Mhm.
of the artists with us now. She came to our booth. She was working on another game at the time, and she just thought the art looked really cool. And you know, I kind of made the connection with her, and she ended up becoming a mentee of mine a couple years later, and then started working with me on some of my art stuff. And then from there, we, you know, had her hop on with us on Travelers Refrain, and she's been working with us like over a year now, I think, right? So yeah, so again, it's like going to these in-person conventions is, it's like we're still seeing the positive repercussions of having gone to those things like years and years ago. Our second artist was actually a really funny story, because I was connected to one of my colleagues, another concept artist in the industry, and he specializes more in environment art, and that's what Arman and I were needing at the time as well. So I messaged him. I'm like, hey, I know you have mentees, man. Like, is there anybody you could pass our way? He passed us a couple names, and it was really funny because we looked through the portfolios, and the one we liked the most, she just happened to live in Houston, where we live also. So obviously we contacted her, and Paloma, who's on the project with us right now and has been on with us for like 2 years now, over 2 years, has been doing amazing work. And she kind of became, I guess Alice became our final like core member, but yeah, she was I guess the first like artist we hired.
She's Paloma McLean.
Yeah,
Find her on
Twitter
and
X, and Instagram, anywhere really. And then we did mention this in the other podcast about the music, but at that one we got to go to that Final Fantasy 15 concert. And that was so sick,
cool.
dude.
So cool.
Yeah,
that was an awesome experience.
Yeah,
they're just like, free concert. FF15 concert's gonna be here. Surprise.
Yeah,
and we just went. So it was a good time.
So yeah, we got to go to that. We learned a lot of stuff, and then
at the end of the night too, we were like, let's go out and meet people. And then we were just like looking at each other, and we looked like zombies, and we're like, there's no way. There's no way. And we have to, like, we have to fix some bugs that we found today, and like we got to go out and like meet people. And actually, people did take us out for dinner, so that was really nice. And thank you so much for doing that.
I think we got to hang out with Julian at that PAX as well, right?
He was working with on Soul at the time, I believe.
Yeah.
Him and Chris McCole.
Yeah.
And Tom from Soul, they were all there.
Yeah.
Which was cool to see, like our dev friends there. And then also we saw some of the students from Drexel were there too. And I can't remember the name of it.
Drexel is where Arman went, by the way.
Yeah, I went to Drexel University. Fling to the Finish or something like that.
Fling to the Finish, yeah.
Fling to the Finish. They were there too, and they were actually in the indie mega booth.
Yeah, which
was pretty cool. So they were our friends too from Drexel, and I also had another one of my fraternity brothers at the event too, which was pretty cool. Yeah.
So PAX happened. Basically, what ended up going down from there is we were continuing to develop. We were continuing to pitch to publishers, and the publisher route for that game just kind of ended up following through. And that was at the time where we were moving to Houston from Philadelphia, and basically like our wives got jobs down here, and we kind of were just like, all right, let's all move to Texas together.
They worked at the same company.
They worked at the same company.
Which was ideal.
Yeah. So we got to Texas, and we were like looking at this project, and we're like, yeah, like, you know, we really loved it, but we just felt like we weren't getting as far as we wanted as quickly as we wanted to. So we were kind of just like, this is a new beginning. Let's just start from scratch using what we had learned from that. And that's how Traveler's Refrain essentially was born. If you look at Mask of Semblance and you look at Traveler's Refrain, I think you can kind of see some of the mood and just like the way I had been animating the characters and stuff like that is similar-ish. So,
and in terms of story for the game, like this wasn't just something that kind of materialized out of no. Well, it wasn't because Nick had the idea that was based on The Alchemist, and then him and I sat together and started kind of being like, oh well, what if the character is this, and what if the character is that, and you know, what if we sort of, you know, took it in this direction, and we kind of ping ponged back and forth. We started coming up with the concept of the forest and about the backstory of the character, and we really started with the lore first and foremost, because we were like kind of story building and world building first, and then we kind of plopped the character in there.
He didn't even have an instrument originally, right? I think our original concept, which still stuck to an extent, but kind of evolved into something else. But we knew that he was going to go through this forest, and he was going to go into these big choice screens where you're going to make a decision. And originally, the concept of the game in general was for those decisions to impact the world a lot more. And what it turned more into was him kind of narrating and you kind of choosing the music. You're kind of like layering the music tracks as you play because he's a musician. But there are some things that affects in the world as well. But that's kind of the biggest thing that stuck throughout the entire project. And then I don't even remember why we decided to add the instrument.
I
Were
think
we
just
just
wanted
like
to do something with music.
I know that I originally wanted it to heal him. So maybe that's where it just stemmed from was like, oh, we want a heal spell. Wouldn't it be cool if he's playing an instrument to heal himself?
Right.
And then
Yeah,
from
maybe that was
there, that was you, was like, you were pushing for like, dude, let's make this crazy and have this like combo input thing.
Yeah. That's where the instrument like song casting mechanics came from.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just like, let's kind of like, I guess, cater to maybe a bit of a more hardcore like action RPG audience.
Mm-hmm.
And the game is completely playable. Like you don't have to use the spells,
Mm-hmm.
but they help you. If you're good with them and you know how to use them, they're really helpful. And so that's I think the goal was to be like, you don't have to use these. I mean, you'll probably have to heal yourself at the minimum and use the world spells, but the combat spells like use as you feel you need.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of the goal with that. Building that mechanic.
But that's what's been interesting too. You're kind of bringing up the lore, and it was feedback, and I don't know, maybe we'll learn more as we continue to make more games after this. But I think it was especially at the time we were developing Mask of Semblance, there's this really big push for like, if you're making an indie game, it's got to have this like totally random kind of mechanic. Like Fling to the Finish is a good example. Like that game was really fun, but it's so out there conceptually where like you're flicking the stick to fling these like balls and it's like a race, But we've always been like the RPG guys, like story guys, like Zelda puzzles and stuff like that. And that's just kind of the game we wanted to make. So that's what we made, Yeah. And we kind of went with a storyline that we then incorporated a, special mechanic into from there. So yeah, it's just been kind of interesting with like how things have progressed. But I just remember hearing that feedback so much of like, the story's not important and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, it's important to me. I love story in games, It's like kind of honestly what I play games for is like, obviously I love playing the game itself, but it's like if a game doesn't have a cool story, it's not as meaningful to me personally.
Right.
So
no, I get that for sure. And obviously when we made these decisions to add all these important RPG elements, we were like, well, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna have to add dialogue. We're gonna have to add voiceover if we want voiceover. We're gonna have to add all these other things, right? The plot needs to make sense. You can't do certain things before you do other certain things. It has to make sense. These characters can't be here at this time. They need to be here at this time. When do you meet this character? When do you meet that character?
How do the main character's actions affect the world? Like, what's even the point of him being there?
Right. What is his progression as a character throughout the story? What are the challenges that he faces that kind of build him up as a character? So we, take all these things into consideration on top of doing all of our other duties.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, we had to set aside days for design. Like there were days where we spent like 8+ hours just doing design. And some of those days we literally got nothing out of it.
Yeah.
Because we were just stuck.
Yeah.
And that happens. And we just were stuck on the concept or we couldn't agree on something. And then we kind of gave it some time to marinate, and then we just came back fresh with a new idea. We're like,
usually
so cool.
It's like 99% of the time it kind of just works itself out if we just like give it some time to think about it.
There are moments where we disagree, and I feel like that happens with all every studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you said, like eventually it kind of figures itself out. And
Mm-hmm.
if one of us is really like adamant about something, I think the other tends to like kind of listen to that, because it's like,
You wouldn't bring it up if you didn't think it was a good idea,
right,
kind of thing.
right.
So yeah, it's been fun, like collaborating, and honestly too, I mean, you think about even these giant studios, dude, like they have writing teams with multiple people. It's not just one head that's coming up with all these intricate ideas. So having each other to kind of bounce ideas off of, I think has made the depth of the game more broad,
Yeah.
in terms, not only in terms of the mechanics, but also in terms of the story and the narrative and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, for sure.
so yeah, I know we didn't like really talk too much about Traveler's Refrain, and I don't want to go too much longer on this podcast, but basically what I can get to is we got to the point where we decided that the theme of the story is about a musician that's struggling, and somehow he's trying to get back to his long lost love that he's missing, and he hears about this ancient forest that can somehow bring him back to her. So that's why the character ends up in the forest. And from there we were sitting together and we were like, dude, wouldn't it be cool if we voiced the character by a musician, because the game's about a musician.
Yep.
And I went and I saw the band Monuments a couple years ago, and they're I forget, what do you call the first person that performs, or
Opener.
the opener? One of the openers was Essinger, who's a solo artist. And just to tell a brief story about that, unfortunately you guys were away, I think, for that show, right? So
Where were we? We were in Costa Rica.
were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was actually an Essinger fan.
Yeah.
More so than you.
Yeah, I'd never heard of him before.
And I was like, oh yeah, like I would have loved to go and see him play, but yeah.
Yeah. So like it was funny because I ended up going with my wife, and this guy just like walks onto the stage by himself with like a synth pad and a guitar and a keyboard. It's like, oh man, this guy's gonna like make a fool of himself. I'm almost like embarrassed for him being on the stage by himself. And then like the lights go down, and there's just like all these crazy lights.
Yeah.
He's hitting the synth and he's like singing and stuff and playing the guitar, and we were just blown away. And I could just hear by his talking voice. Sometimes you hear people and they have like a very special sounding voice. He has one of those deep kind of, I don't know. It's like, I think maybe the
Bass.
fact
He's
got
a lot of bass in his voice.
he's got a lot of bass in his voice. And as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, oh my God, I would love for him to voice our character.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't go and meet him at the show. It like took some time for me to just like, think on it, I think. And then I brought it to you and I was like, what do you think about this guy's voice? And we were like, let's just reach out to him. So I think we just messaged him on Instagram or something and started working with him. So that's been really cool. He's been an awesome, contribution to the project as well. And if you guys haven't heard his music, go listen to his music because it's really, really cool. But yes, so from there we just started partnering with some other musicians. And that's been really sick as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, for
here we
sure.
are now, essentially. We've got a demo out on Steam, which again, please go check that out because Steam Next Fest is coming up. By the time this airs, it'll be coming up in a couple days. So if you guys play the demo, please hop in the Discord and let us know what you think about it, because any feedback we would really greatly appreciate.
Thanks to everybody
Yeah.
who submitted feedback forms and sent us documents with feedback.
Yeah.
That's so much appreciated, and you give us a lot of perspective on things that we miss,
Mhm.
essentially, and that level of detail is what we need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, game dev is hard, but we love it, and I really hope that you guys have gotten something out of this little talk, and hopefully this has inspired you, if not game dev, to do something, to do some kind of project, because I think it's really good for the soul to get your creativity out there.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, these are long projects we've done.
mhm.
Mask of Semblance was 2.5 years,
Mhm.
and this has been 4.5 years. So don't get discouraged by the time that these times, but obviously everyone's story is different, right? But we're also making a really ambitious game, so I think
And we should preface too, this is not full-time work for us, and Armand and I are basically like financing the project. So there's hardcore limitations for how long we can work and how much money we have make the game as well. So
We could probably do a whole nother episode on just Traveler's Refrain.
Yeah.
I think we could probably like, I don't know,
break it down a little bit more.
break it down a little more once we are really nearing development.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think it's been we love like reminiscing about the old times
Yeah.
and how we got here, and kind of keeps us a little bit sane. So
Yeah.
yeah, we got a long road ahead of us, I think so.
Yeah, long road, but a good road ahead of us. And yeah, again, please give us any feedback. Go check out the game. Wishlisting also really, really helps. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
So yeah.
Thanks, guys.